Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, FPL Consult here, and today we're going to take a look at a Game Week 36 differential team. Now there's only a couple of game weeks left, 3 game weeks to be exact, Game Week 36, Game Week 37, and the final game week of the season, which is Game Week 38. Now with only 3 game weeks left, there are only a couple of decisions left in our hands, and we can only effect a certain amount of change to our teams. So if we are chasing rank, or if we want to beat our mini league rivals, we will have to start looking different here and there. So today's video is meant for us to take a look at the different positions at where we can go different, some players that we can consider in those various positions, and if you guys are chasing rank, I think there will be a couple of interesting picks here for you guys. So if you guys do enjoy this video, please give it a like and also subscribe as well if you are new around here. So for this team, we're going to take a look at the best differentials based on expected points. We're going to base these players such that they will give us the best points, and the criteria is that it is less than 10% owned. So all these players here are less than 10% owned, and as you guys saw in the thumbnail of the video, it's only 5.5% effective ownership for all these players on average. So it's a very differential team. You're not going to go for every single player here, but do pick out some players that you think will be good for the remainder of the season, right? So there are a couple of spicy picks here, but let's start off in goal and in defense. Now, there's Kepa in goal. Now, Kepa is also the highest predicted points keeper this week at 4.2 predicted points. So on top of him being very differential, he is also predicted to do really well. So that is a perfect match here. Kepa against Nottingham Forest at home. Chelsea have started to turn a corner recently. So let's hope that Kepa can keep a clean sheet against Nottingham Forest. In the back line, there's a 3-man defense with Darlow, John Stones, and Robertson. Now, as you guys can see, it's a very differential back line here. Diogo Dalot is, of course, a very differential player, way less than 10% owned, and it's actually because Luke Shaw is the one that a lot of us went for a couple of game weeks ago. But now that there are injuries to Lisandro Martinez and also Rafael Varane, then Luke Shaw has now stepped into left centre back, and that opens up a slot where Dalot has been filling in at left back, and we know he is a very attacking player. So there is a very good chance that if he gets clean sheets plus an attacking return, it will really boost our rank by a lot. So he has 5.4 predicted points against Wolves. Manchester United are predicted to keep a clean sheet against Wolves. So if Dalot can get something here, a double-digit haul is not far away from him. Now for John Stones as well, 5.3 predicted points for him. Out of all the Man City defenders, I do like John Stones the best. The only thing is he could get the odd rest here and there, but aside from that, his attacking threat is really good. And on top of that, we know that City is always very, very high up the clean sheet odds when it comes to getting clean sheets as well. Right now, as for Andy Robertson, he is the next best alternative after Trent Alexander-Arnold. Trent, of course, is very highly owned, but if we are looking for a differential in the defense, then Leicester away is a great fixture for Andy Robertson. Leicester have been conceding loads of chances, and actually down Andy Robertson flank is where they have conceded the most chances. So 5.1 predicted points for him if he keeps a clean sheet and also gets an attacking return. Now Robertson has been slightly going under the radar a little bit because of Trent Alexander-Arnold, but he still has been whipping in balls here and there, and considering that Leicester are so poor defensively, if one of those crosses gets met by either Gakpo or Salah, then definitely Robertson will be in business, right? So there we go with the back line. Let's take a look at the midfield. So moving on to the midfield, this is a very differential midfield here as we can see, but one that I think we can agree they will do quite well, right? So Bruno Fernandes, Joe Linton, Willock, and Alexis McAllister. Now before we cover the double game week players, let's talk about the single game week player first, which is Bruno Fernandes. Now he has Wolves at home, right? And basically Wolves have been a very, very poor side when they play away from home, right? So at home, at Old Trafford for Bruno Fernandes, I do really fancy Manchester United to get a couple of returns. And to be fair, Bruno Fernandes has been pretty unlucky in the past few games not to get more returns than he actually did, right? A couple of sitters that he missed recently, and also some assists that should well have been converted by some of the strikers, right? So 6.5 predicted points is not even a far stretch. I think it's completely possible for Bruno Fernandes here. And then we move on to the double game week players. There's 2 Newcastle and 1 Brighton player here. So Joe Linton and Willock, we'll talk about them together. So basically, both of them generally feature in that midfield, right? At this point in time, because Sean Longstaff is currently injured, the way that it's kind of shaping up is in the midfield, there's Bruno Guimaraes, and then there's Willock and Joe Linton. But of course, when Sean Longstaff comes back, I think we could very well see a midfield 3 of Willock, Longstaff, and Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Linton could move up to the left forward position, right? So that is very likely what we will see. But in general, both of these players I think are really low owned, and on top of that, they've been going really under the radar. Joe Linton especially has been getting a lot of returns in recent games, but because we're all talking about Isak, we're talking about Wilson, we kind of forget about Joe Linton and Willock, which is fine because it does take up, or these players do take up a midfield spot, which is very, very coveted at this point in time. There's loads of good midfielders. But of course, if we want to go different, I think Joe Linton and Willock are perfect players to go different. 9.1 predicted points for Joe Linton and 8.7 for Joe Willock as well. Willock has been really good in popping up in places and getting chances of running off these strikers as well. So I really like the look of both these players. And then we take a look at Alexis McAllister. He has 9.2 predicted points this double game week. It is a tougher double game week for him. He has Newcastle away and also Arsenal away. But I do expect him to actually drop slightly deeper, because generally in tougher games for Brighton, De Zerbi likes McAllister at a slightly deeper role so that he has more control of the midfield, which is very well what we may see against both of these tough opponents, Arsenal and Newcastle. But either ways, McAllister does look really sharp and he's controlling the play from the back. Of course, he has penalties, and the odd chance that he ventures forward, he always gets his shot away. So in general, I do like McAllister as a differential, and it is pretty surprising, right, that he is very, very low owned, and I do think like his ownership will go up after this week, especially after the injury to Solly March, right? I think it is a fairly easy swap from Solly March to McAllister for those of you guys who do have Solly March, right? So let's take a look now at the forwards. So up front, we're going to go with Evan Ferguson, Wilson, and Enciso. Now, covering the Brighton players first, in general, when we talk about Brighton attackers, generally we tend towards their midfielders. So Solly March, Mitoma, McAllister, but their forward line is actually where they are the best hidden gems. Now, Evan Ferguson, we know he is a really, really great striker, and on top of that, before he got injured, he looked really, really sharp, and he was starting quite a couple of games. Now that he's back from injury, we could see him feature a lot more, and after that loss against Everton 5-1, we could really see De Zerbi shake things up and start Ferguson instead in this double game week, right? So even though it is a tougher double game week for Brighton, which is Arsenal away and Newcastle away, both these defenses, Arsenal and Newcastle, have been prone to conceding the odd goal here and there. So Evan Ferguson is someone that I think has the flair and has the potential to really benefit from those laps in concentration from those defenses. So 8.4 predicted points for Ferguson. Very, very attainable, I feel, right? And he is a very spicy differential for this week. Same goes for Enciso as well, who pops up in very, very good positions. 8.2 predicted points, and he does have a really good shot in him as well, right? So both these players, I think, could be very, very good differentials for those of us who want to go different. Maybe we don't have a third Brighton player still. Then I think going for the forwards here is a really, really, really good option here. So Callum Wilson is the last player that we haven't spoken about, and I think he is a very, very great differential this week. 11.1 predicted points puts him second out of all the predicted points players for the Draft Hound model, and basically Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak, who is very highly owned, both of them are predicted to do really well. So it is a question whether we want to go for Wilson and Isak. That will depend on a lot of factors, expected minutes, expected goal involvement as well. But in terms of a differential, obviously Callum Wilson is the one. He is very low owned at this point in time, much less than Alexander Isak, because a lot of us are tending towards Isak for his expected minutes. So if we want to go different, if we are chasing rank, I think Callum Wilson is someone we would definitely have to be in our considerations, of course, right? When he starts, I think he is the better option to have in terms of Isak versus Wilson, because when he starts, he will occupy that center forward position, and on top of that, he has penalties. He is ahead of Alexander Isak in the penalties pecking order, right? So if he starts and if he gets enough minutes compared to Isak, I think Wilson is a really good differential. So it remains to be seen whether we get leaks on the Newcastle Leeds game, and that could affect our decision whether we want to go for Wilson or Isak, right? So for now, this is how this differential team looks like. Let me know what you guys think. All of these players are less than 10% owned, and the overall general ownership of this team is only 5.5%, right? So you're not going to go for everyone. Pick out the differentials that are logical for those of you guys who want to go different. And obviously there's only 3 game weeks left, so it won't be too costly to go for any of these picks. Choose wisely, and I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please give it a like and also subscribe as well if you are new around here. And I'll catch you guys in more Game Week 36 content very soon.